I'm Jack Kennedy, and they hit a lot harder in my opinion too.
What is up, everybody? My name is Keelan McNamara, and everyone's got a plan until they get hit with my views.
I am Hunter Boss. He just wanted to go to the distance by the looks of it, but he couldn't even do that.
And this is the MMA Island Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MMA Island Podcast. I am Jack Kennedy alongside Keelan McNamara and Hunter Boss. UFC 264, just wow. It was incredible, top to bottom. Just what an impactful night of fights. We were talking about the significance of it on the Instagram Live. I don't think we even touched on how important this card will be for the future of the UFC and everything. It was amazing. Let's get started with talking about it with Tai Tuivasa, who I think stole the night with one of the craziest knockouts, the craziest walkouts, the best celebration I've ever seen. Even his picture, he was holding up the shoe. Hunter, what did you think of Tai Tuivasa?
It was so much fun. You know, it's what you love to see when you're watching UFC is a new, fresh fighter. I mean, he's not necessarily new, but to be on a Conor McGregor pay-per-view and to do what he just did there is going to gain him so many different followers, which is good for him. I mean, Tai Tuivasa, he was fantastic when he first started in the UFC, had a bit of a stumble, and now he's back, and I feel like he's on top right now. I think he's ready for a ranked opponent in the UFC, hopefully someone in the top 15. Even the top 10 wouldn't piss me off here. So Tai Tuivasa needs some really good opponents here because he got a little hurt against Greg Hardy in the match, but he just instantly went out there with a picture-perfect left hook, put him down, put him to sleep. It was amazing to see. And his celebration is always fun with the shoeies. And, you know, the Nelk boys were there, so I'm sure they were having some fun there too. So it was always fun, always fun.
Man, just shades of Czech Congo Pat Barry. That was it was a whole vibe. I swear to God. Tai Tuivasa, I love you so much. Yeah, but what an amazing performance from Tai Tuivasa. Got rocked by Greg Hardy, whom, regardless of personal opinion, is a tough fighter. He's very powerful. He obviously, with his NFL background, he moves very quickly. No one can argue that. And it was a very good performance from Tuivasa. Very good to see him come through that adversity. And what a hellacious left hook that was to knock Greg Hardy down. That was titanic. That hook was unbelievable knockout. Definitely stole one of the key moments of the show. Took advantage of being on a McGregor card like we've talked about so often before, and an unbelievable performance from Tai Tuivasa. Shout out to Shuey, love to see that. Unfortunately, it got spiked by hot sauce, but in typical Tuivasa manner. I bet you that was Dustin's sauce, by the way.
It was, yeah.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh man, shout out to Ivasa. Man's a legend. Love that. But yeah, really, really cool guy. Doesn't take it too seriously when he doesn't have to. And Hunter just made an amazing point there. He is going to get so many new fans from so many different areas because of that. He's likable, he's tough, and he hits like a sledgehammer. Tied to Ivasa, very well done.
Oh my Lord, it was amazing. I mean, from the walkout, you have to watch this whole fight in full. From the first thing he's walking out to when he's walking out of the octagon after the fight, because he's walking out to the Spice Girls and like it's the funniest walkout ever, and everybody's singing along and everybody's behind him. Plus, he's fighting Greg Hardy, which we won't get into that, but people are already going to root for him. But he's tied to Ivasa, which makes it even better and everything. And he's walking out and getting everybody hyped up, and it's hilarious. And he steps in there. And just from the get-go, he's throwing these heavy kicks. You knew something crazy was going to happen. I mean, Greg Hardy, Tai Tuivasa on a Conor card. And shout out to everybody on this card because everybody showed up to fight. Say what you will about the co-main event. That one was, you know, not the most exciting fight. But everybody showed up to fight, especially on the earlier parts of the card. Everybody was there. Everybody seized the moment, in my opinion. And especially Tai Tuivasa and Greg Hardy, credit to him because they were throwing and Tuivasa got hurt really bad. He got rocked and I was like, oh no. And then he hit him with the left hook as Greg Hardy was rushing in and slept him. And then the celebration was the best thing I've ever seen on the cage of the octagon. We've never seen him do a shoey on the cage of the octagon before. Tosses it and beer's rolling down him and everything. It's the greatest thing ever. You know, everything about it. And then he walks out and then he does one that's spiked with hot sauce. So he has to do another one to wash that down. And then before he's about to go in, someone just pours a whole bottle of beer down his throat. It was incredible to see. Tai Tuivasa got the whole crowd excited. And when you talk about some of the most likable guys, he is becoming that, especially at the heavyweight division and stuff. And that division is so fun. And that's just what you want to see. That's the fight you want to see on a Conor card. It's just crazy things like that. And it absolutely delivers. So Tai Tuivasa, great job. Let's talk about now the fight following that, which was high stakes at welterweight. And it was a brilliant performance by Gilbert Burns. I think we all have to say that. Hunter, what are your thoughts on the co-main event?
A lot of fans would say it was lackluster, but I mean, if you look at it technically, it was a lot of different movements we saw and a lot of different things that proved a lot of different things. So, from what I saw here was that Gilbert Burns was not able to do a whole lot of offensive damage to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson when he was on the ground. I felt like he held him there for most of the round, and at the end of the round when he's doing those short little punches, I don't think that hurt Stephen too much. A lot of people do think that, but I think Stephen's been through way worse. But Steven actually did a fantastic job in the second and third round. I feel like his stand-up game was amazing. He hit this spinning wheel kick that knocked down Gilbert Burns in the third round, which is always so fun to see. You know, any fighter that does that is always fun to watch in general. But I think Gilbert Burns just did a great job of utilizing his skills that he has and not just standing up and trading with Stephen Thompson. Because when he was doing that, he was losing the fight. So his game plan was good, and he went out there and executed it. Sure, he didn't get any submissions, and we didn't see a whole lot of ground and pound out of him other than the last like 10 seconds of each round. But I think Gilbert Burns did what he had to do to win the fight, and he proved that he's one of the smartest fighters in this division.
Yeah, on our Instagram live and fight night, I said if Gilbert Burns can make this into a grappling match, he has so much of a better chance of winning this fight. And that's exactly what he did. Definitely not the most entertaining fight I've ever seen. I don't think that's a controversial opinion to have in this fight, but he was effective. He did what he needed to do. I'm not going to lie, I wanted Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to win. I predicted him to win a decision as long as he kept it standing, but it was a very good wrestling performance from Gilbert Burns. You know, he got 3 takedowns on Wonderboy. I do agree with Hunter. I don't think he did much damage. He was certainly doing work on the lesser end of the scale of work on the ground, but it was effective. It was basic. He was grinding him out in the ground, keeping him there, trying to tire him out. And just it was a solid performance. You know, it was nothing to write home about. Certainly not a fight of the night contender, but he did what he needed to do and he left with the W. That being said, what a spinning heel kick from Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Yeah. He cracked him square in the head with that. And I thought, this is it. Wonderboy's got the comeback here. And, you know, don't let the stats fool you. Wonderboy was really, really good on Saturday night. When the fight was on the feet, the fight was his to lose. He cracked Burns with a lot of good boxing as well, managed the distance for the most part really well with his kicks, with the exception of course, when it went against the cage being taken down. But Wonderboy's far from done. I've seen a lot of people saying, you know, this is his last shot at the title run and all this kind of thing. I don't think it is. I think we still have a lot more to come from Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I think he impressed a lot more people than he normally would have, especially a lot of pessimists. But a good job by Gilbert Burns. One thing I will say about Burns, though, before I end this is, obviously he said he wanted the Masvidal fight, but he wants an extra check to fight him. Gilbert, you may have won on Saturday night, but you ain't getting an extra check from nobody, because whilst I commend you for your performance, excellent wrestling game, no one pays to watch that. If you want the casuals on side so you can get the money and so on and so forth, you go about it by knocking Wonderboy out, and you never look like doing that. I commend you on your performance. That's unquestionable, but don't go around making extra demands because you ain't never seeing them.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Unless you're Anthony Pettis, what Gilbert Burns did is the only way to neutralize Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Just use his wrestling to his advantage, and that's why I picked Burns. By the way, 2 for 2 on picks for the main and co-main event. That's a rarity for me. So I'm very happy with how that
I'll
went.
take my one.
Yeah. But I don't know. It was very interesting. Stephen Thompson, by the way, that third round was so crazy because I really did think he had him hurt. I thought he had him hurt bad and dropped, but Gilbert Burns is so tough. That's why I really wish, and we were talking about it, and it's a controversial thing, that fight should have been 5 rounds. If it goes 5 rounds, I think Stephen Thompson wins it. The tide was definitely turning in the third round. You could tell Gilbert Burns was slowing down because of the amount of wrestling he was having to do to neutralize Stephen Thompson. The entire time, he was having to go forward and do that. And he took a break in the second round. And in my opinion, and the judges agree with me, I think Stephen Thompson won the second round. That's why it was a 29-28 decision. And that's why, and Hunter was talking to, I still think Gilbert Burns won it, but you can make the case for Wonderboy winning it because he did drop Gilbert Burns with that spinning wheel kick in the third round. So I don't think it would have been called necessarily a robbery if Stephen Thompson won. I wouldn't have chosen personally, but it's on the table. So I think it goes 5 rounds. Stephen Thompson's down 2-1, but he's got the better cardio. He's fresher, and he's already hurt Gilbert Burns really bad. Then he opens it up, starts to put the pressure more, and I think Stephen Thompson gets the win there. I thought Stephen Thompson fought very well. I wish for him to be a little more active in the first round. He seemed to me to be fighting a 5-round fight and a 3-round fight.
Yeah.
And I think Gilbert Burns took advantage of that, and that's why he lost. And I mean, you can't blame him for that. I mean, Stephen Thompson very rarely fights 3-round fights because he's usually headlining either a fight night or he's in a co-main event title fight at welterweight. That's just the level that Stephen Thompson is at. So I don't blame him. I don't know if he can necessarily make another title run at this division, though. It'll be very tough because of just how stacked up things. Do I think technically he could absolutely do it? Yes, I do think technically he could do it. But I think the division is so clogged up right now with everything that's going on and with the matchups that's going on. He would need to start getting just massive knockouts and completely neutralize any wrestling to do it. And I just don't think he could be able to do that. Now, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know. As for you, Keith, I completely agree with you said about Gilbert Burns and him calling out Masvidal and everything. Do the fight, but you didn't gain any real new fans after that, especially on the showcase. You did what you had to do. Great performance. You did amazing. The takedowns were there, but whenever you did take him down, it was all about the reason Stephen Thompson couldn't get up is because Gilbert Burns was only focusing on keeping him down there and not really inflicting any damage. And that's not the most entertaining thing. We've said that about Curtis Blades, other fighters come to name too, but it's very interesting. So the matchups, we'll see what happens. We kind of talked about on the Instagram Live as well, but overall, good performance from Burns. And I hope we do see Wonderboy back because I think if it did go 5 rounds, I think Wonderboy would have won it. I think it was trending in his direction. And that's what I would have liked to see. So hopefully he can make a comeback.
Yeah, when it comes to MMA rules, I differ in a few ways here. You know, when you're laying on someone for about 2 minutes, 3 minutes maybe, and not really doing much damage until the last 10 seconds where you're throwing illegal strikes to the back of the head, compared to a knockdown from a spinning wheel kick and plus some amazing boxing in the first, I think, 2.5 minutes of the round, I would have gave Stephen Thompson that last round. That's just my rule set here. I know it's technically not the right rule set because he wasn't in control for most of the round, but when it comes down to it, he did more damage on the feet. And honestly, Gilbert Burns didn't do any damage on the ground. Maybe the last 10 seconds of the second round where he was doing those short punches, but that's the only case I can make for him. He didn't go for any submission attempts from what I remember, or really any damaging blows other than illegal blows in the last round. So that's why I'm a little salty when it comes to the co-main event. I think Steven should have won. Do I think he would have got a title shot off that fight? No way. He did not prove himself to Kamaru Usman here, and which makes things a lot more difficult for the welterweight division here because now we're thinking, okay, we're going to get the Colby Covington rematch in September or October, but where do we go after that? Say Kamaru Usman wins. You know, Kamaru Usman's fought everyone in the top 5 except Stephen Thompson, who is now on a loss. So Kamaru Usman will not be fighting him next. Who gets the next title shot after Colby Covington? Maybe the winner of Vicente Luque, Michael Chiesa. Who really knows? Because they're not even in the top 5 right now. Kamaru Usman's running into the same problem GSP and Anderson Silva did. They're running out of opponents to fight. They're going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel. So sadly, I would have liked the co-main event to go out differently. And I totally agree with Jack and Keelan here that Gilbert Burns should not get like a pay raise off of that for beating Stephen Thompson in that fashion. He should have either went for a submission or maybe like a knockout or something like that. But I mean, there's no complaints when you're fighting Masvidal because you're going to get a pretty good paycheck by the end of the night. Trust me, because everyone loves watching Masvidal. So if they're watching Masvidal, they're watching you. So your stock rises with his stock. it's a lot of different things here, but Gilbert Burns did what he needed to do. May not have been the most entertaining fight, but he did what he had to do and got the win.
Yeah, I love the point Hunter just made a minute ago, actually, and it's something I was meaning to elaborate on. For fans of all descriptions, but especially fans like us and journalists like us, one of the big issues we've had with the MMA rules for years is this notion of takedowns and automatically winning rounds just because you're lying on top of your opponent. A real distinguishment has to be made here. There's a difference between taking an opponent down and just lying on top of him for 4 minutes, and there's a difference between doing what Dustin Poirier did and landing elbows on your opponent.
Oh yeah.
There's such a difference that needs to be made in the judging here. I think if you just take your opponent down just to lie on him and stop him from getting up, that's negative fighting. And sort of like back in the old days of Pride, you should almost be yellow carded for it. You will remember referees had the card system back in the day.
I love that. Yeah.
I think this is something that needs to be considered. And it's not because I approach this from a casual perspective, because I would do anything but. Wrestling is a fundamental component of mixed martial arts, and we all respect that. But there comes a point where you start to cross a line stylistically, and there comes a point where you're doing that just to make the fight negative and dull, and guys like Wonder Boy simply can't do what they need to do. Granted, that's on him to get back up, but that's neither here nor there. The point is with someone like Gilbert Burns is an amazing jiu-jitsu practitioner. Why he's not trying to advance position, get past Wonder Boy's guard, maybe go for the back now and again, instead of just like Hunter said perfectly, lying there for 2.5 minutes and starting to throw short punches in the last 10 seconds. That means nothing to anyone. And like he said, if you consider the actual balance of what happened, I wouldn't be mad at giving Wonderboy the third round either. He clearly pressed the pace more. He landed an incredible kick that actually was a knockdown, and he did more work. One thing I will also say before I end this, if you take a point away from Gilbert Burns for those punches to the back of the head, we're probably looking at a very different conversation right here, right now. So these are all points to consider. But again, I am fully behind Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I think he's anything but done when it comes to this conversation.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, Hunter, I think you convinced me, because it pains me to say that, because that is something, one of my core things when watching MMA from a long time has been, before I say this, because I don't want to sound like I'm trashing wrestlers, let me list some amazingly exciting wrestlers. We have Michael Chandler, right? I count Charles Oliveira because he's a very good grappler. If you go down there, you're dead. I mean, Michael Chiesa, DC, Habib, Islam Makhachev. I mean, look at that list of names. They're all very, very exciting. They maul you. They store. Even, okay, he's not a wrestler, but look at what Dustin Poirier did. He went down there and just like Habib style mauled Conor, and we'll get to that.
Worse than Khabib did.
Worse than Khabib did, because he's not afraid to stand up because he rocked him. That's a different. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, very, very, very exciting. And you love to see. I love to see whenever those ground transitions are going on. It's just like that. That's just as exciting if on the feet, if not more exciting, because it's so crazy, so technical, so everything. So I want to say that first. Let me follow with this. When you're doing what Gilbert Burns was doing, and I really do love Gilbert Burns. I think he's a phenomenal fighter. Yeah. And I think he did this out of fear of Stephen Thompson striking, because how do you solve the Stephen Thompson puzzle? You prevent the striking, and that's what he did. But when you're scoring rounds, now the reason I made that argument was because I'm thinking of the way the rounds are currently scored in the UFC and MMA, which is there's so much value on just controlling your opponent from the ground that, what's going on. Now, if Gilbert Burns controlled it, like the first round controlled him and Stephen Thompson didn't get any offense off at all, you have to give that round to Gilbert Burns. But the third round, I think you really convinced me, because Stephen Thompson dropped him. Now, what would have happened if Gilbert Burns, and I'm thinking about this right now, what would have happened if Gilbert Burns had taken him down, held him down for the first 3 minutes, because he had about 3 minutes to control in the last round. The last 2 minutes, you combine everything Stephen Thompson did in the first 2 minutes of that round, including the drop kick. I think they give him that round because of the way he ended it. So it's a very interesting thing, and that's how I really, 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 and it's starting to trend in that direction. That's how I hope MMA judging is put on these days, because that encourages everybody to start going for the finish, to take that risk. Even if you're facing a guy like that, you have to be confident in your ability to neutralize that in order to do that. So yeah, Gilbert Burns did what he had to do, but at the end of the day, Hunter, I agree with you. And I feel stupid for even arguing against it because I do think that, because that spinning wheel kick dropped him. He landed a drop. He dropped him to his knees, outboxed him, outstruck him in the first round, in the third round, and got taken down and just held there for 2 minutes. Nothing happened. I mean, even Jan Blachowicz did damage to Israel Adesanya when he took him down. I mean, he was even like advancing position and stuff, and that was in dominant position. There was a lot of points in the fight where they were just in the clinch. I kind of wish the ref would have stepped in there, especially at the beginning of the first round where they were just standing in the clinch and in that same position for a good minute. That being said, under the current scoring systems, I do stand by where my mind was, because I think you have to give it to Gilbert Burns considering the way takedowns and holding them are valued at this point. And so that's just kind of where I was coming from there. But anyways, we just mentioned the main event. Now it's time to talk about the main event. And wow, that was insane. Conor Dustin ended in such a weird fashion. And there's so much to break down about this. So let's just go ahead and get started. Hunter, what did you make of the main event?
Man, where to start? You know, MMA is such an unpredictable sport. Let's be honest here. There's so many different ways a fight can end, but rarely do people realize that they can get seriously injured. And this is what happened. You know, the fight started off with Conor McGregor throwing some heavy leg kicks, and I mean heavy. Like I was thinking, oh my God, this is Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor in reverse. You know, like it was insane. Like I think in the later rounds, Dustin would have been having trouble moving. You know, with how heavy those leg kicks were and where they were placed. Then Dustin started pushing the pace with the boxing and started landing some really good shots. That's when Conor goes for the clinch and for a little bit of a takedown type of situation, which I guess we can call him a dusty bitch because that's his Twitter.
That's
right?
what he said.
First one to go for the takedown. I guess.
Did you guys see the thing where it's like the 3 tiers?
Yeah, I did. I love that one. I love
Missions don't count, attempts guillotine.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, but we see Conor go for a guillotine, which no one was expecting. And honestly, at first, you know, I've been watching MMA for years. That looked like it was tight. I'm not gonna lie. Did. I know better because I've seen Conor McGregor fight. I know he wasn't gonna get the guillotine. Sorry, and but Dustin was smart enough to kind of prop himself up vertically, so make sure nothing was restricting of the airflow, and he eventually got out of the guillotine and started letting some heavy elbows, some heavy punches, while Conor was a bit cheap in this situation and was pulling on the gloves of Dustin Poirier, holding his fingers in there and going for the up kick, which was not really seen by the ref. Dustin did mention in his post-fight interview that he tried telling Herbert, but it didn't really matter because Dustin was seriously pissing him up. Like it was dangerously close to being stopped. And then sadly, after that, we see the snappage of Conor McGregor's leg. Conor McGregor goes for a punch. They both go for a punch at the same time, really. And this leg I think it was the ankle part or the tibia, basically snaps in half. We see a bit of an Anderson Silva replay, except no one was going for a leg kick. He was literally just going for a punch, which I don't think I've seen in the UFC or at least haven't seen it in a while. So the fight was crazy from start to finish. I had Dustin winning, and Dustin ended up winning, but no one really called that to be happening, the breakage of the leg. So fantastic fight, though. Honestly, I would have loved to see all 5 rounds or even just another round to start with because Conor McGregor was doing some damage with the leg kicks, so could have slowed down Dustin's game, but Dustin was looking great on the feet. So it was like a total reverse of McGregor Dustin Poirier 2, because someone else was throwing the leg kicks and someone else was piecing up on the feet. So I don't know. It was a fantastic fight. Everyone wishes they could see more. I don't think there should be a 4th fight, but we'll get into that later. So yeah.
There's 2 parts to this fight that need to be broken down. The second one I'm going to talk about later, which is after the fight and everything before the fight.
Yes, of course.
What I'm going to start with, and I kind of take this a bit personally because I'm an Irish mixed martial arts fan, so I'm going to approach this from a different perspective and talk about the fight itself to begin with. What a crazy opening to the fight. You know, Conor comes out as we thought he would, throws the spinning back kick twice in succession, doesn't land, but certainly looks good, looks fresh, looks better on the feet. Starts going for some heavy leg kicks. I'm convinced the first one cracked his ankle because if you look where he throws the leg kick, it actually hits just the outside of Dustin's kneecap, and that's where Dustin points. And I do believe that's where the ankle was cracked, and that laid the foundation for what happened later. Then Conor starts throwing the boxing. He starts to get into that. Dustin has no respect for Conor's stand-up whatsoever. He interrupts his boxing with his own, looks far more convincing, throws a couple of left straights and a left uppercut that stagger Conor. Conor completely panics, shoots for the clinch. They get into it against the fence. Dustin officially scores the takedown. McGregor then falls into a guillotine, which, to his credit, even though you guys already know where I'm going with this about the whole thing, to his credit, it's tighter than it should have been. It's a one-arm guillotine, so he never has as much chance of pulling it off as an actual guillotine like Dustin against Khabib. So yeah, he has a single arm guillotine. Dustin, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, he's never going to get tapped out by it, but he falls into a tight guillotine. As Hunter said perfectly, he raises his head and his spine in order to ensure the continuity of oxygen and blood flow from his head to the rest of his body, advances position using the fence. This argument of him holding his toes in the cage is ridiculous because that doesn't even benefit Dustin. Dustin needs his feet
It
free
just
to
happened
advance.
as he was going over.
Yeah.
Like that happens to every fight. Yeah.
Exactly right. He advances position. By the sweet Jesus himself, he starts landing some hellacious elbows. Far worse, in my opinion, than what Khabib did in terms of ground and pound. This was the most vicious assault that I've ever seen Dustin land. McGregor, to his credit, he lands some elbows and not quite 12-6, but some tough elbows under the top of Dustin's head. Dustin says, F that, goes back to the elbows, lands some really, really heavy damage on Conor. Quite frankly, he's beating him up and badly. Then that goes on for about a minute or two. They stand back up. McGregor tries to throw a right-handed jab, I believe. Dustin stands back. They both go for the straight left. They both go over each other's heads. And then McGregor stands back on his cracked leg, bends at a 45-degree angle, bends straight. He falls into the fence, and Dustin takes advantage. He is beating him up, and that fight could have been stopped by a TKO with 10 seconds to go. Quite frankly, I would make the argument it should have been. And yeah, let me make something extremely clear at this point, because of course I'm going to let you, Jack, and you, Hunter, speak before I break down before the fight and everything afterwards. Let's be absolutely crystal clear on something, and I don't care if you're the biggest Conor McGregor fanboy who walks this earth or you're his biggest hater. Conor McGregor was not winning that fight. He was never, ever, ever going to. Dustin beat that ass the first round. If we're being truthful, I had it as a 10-8. And we were discussing this earlier, and this is my reasoning for why. A 10-8 is defined as basically opponent A beating opponent B to a point where the referee could stop the fight. And Hunter used those exact words not 2 minutes ago to describe the ground and pound. That in itself justifies the 10-8. The fact that Dustin was doing the better work on the feet before the guillotine, the fact that he passed the guillotine, the elbows, everything to me warrants a 10-8 for Dustin in that first round. And if that had gone to the second round, Dustin would have put him down and he would not have got up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're going to go with like 3 circles around this because we have to cover a lot with this. So I'll just start with the first thing. And Keelan, I'll start with the 10-8 because I agree with you. And it's not only because of what you said, because you could apply that, okay, but you only did it for 10 seconds. No, Dustin did that for 4 minutes of that fight. I'll start with this. Conor looked great for the first 60 seconds, but then Dustin got comfortable and cracked him. I think he hurt Conor because when is the only time Conor will engage in grappling or anything when he's hurt? We've seen it really 2 other times when Diaz hurt him bad in the first fight and he went for the takedown and got submitted, obviously. And I mean, a little bit in Dustin Poirier too, but it's in this fight especially. And then you went to the clinch, and then once you're in the clinch with Dustin is just physically bigger than Conor. I mean, look at the body sizes and everything. So he's going to be able to outmuscle him to the cage. Conor goes for the guillotine. And from there, and by the way, the guillotine, I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, oh wait, no, that's not going to happen. I was like, oh, what's going to happen? And I was like,
for a split second, I thought the universe was going to destroy
I know.
itself.
And then after that 1 second, you realize Dustin Poirier, a black belt, is going to be on top, and Conor's going to blow out his arms. And so obviously Dustin got around. I'm glad you brought up the foot in the cage thing, because someone takes a picture and it's like, Dustin's cheating too. How would he hook his foot to push him? It doesn't make sense. But anyway, so he gets around.
You're saying he intentionally stopped himself from passing guard?
He would have hooked himself back to go. It doesn't make any sense. But he was landing some really, really, as like the Matt Brown elbow is what he was landing on Conor McGregor, and he was just beating him up. Conor landed some good elbows of his own, but Dustin was never in any real trouble, and he knew to get out of it. The up kicks, he was definitely holding on to the glove, like he pointed out in the thing. And I mean, here's where I come from, and especially for the 10-8 for me, after the up kicks especially, and Conor was already getting beat up before them, but after the up kicks, especially when Dustin got around him, he started pouring it on until Conor got up. He was literally pouring it on. And the only reason Conor got up and that happened was because Dustin turned around to Herb Dean to tell him about the glove pulling down thing. He literally turned around. I don't know if you guys saw it. He turned around, and that's when Conor got up, and the whole thing happened. He was absolutely destroying him. The ankle snap, right? So, and okay, before that, I think you could arguably, if it wasn't Conor McGregor, before anything even happened, if it wasn't Conor McGregor, if it wasn't the main event, I think that fight could arguably be stopped at that point. After the up kicks, and he was just absolutely pouring it on for a good 30 seconds, and Conor wasn't really doing too much. So they stand back up. The ankle snap happens. For the ankle snap, you guys can watch any video, and I'm sure we've all seen the videos. That doesn't happen unless it's already fractured or something happened with that leg kick. You don't just stand back and twist, because of the way it was happening. It wasn't like he landed on it sideways. He landed on it straight, and then it twisted and snapped. So it was already like shaken up. So I think it definitely was a check. It's a horrible way for the fight to end, and I don't wish that on anybody. And we'll go into all the stuff before and what Conor said after, like Caitlin said, in just a second. But I don't wish that on anybody. But Dustin, this was a legitimate win. Anybody saying it's not a legitimate win, I disagree with you fully. At the end of the day, one, as much as you hate to see those injuries, they are TKO because it came off a leg check. It's a part of the game, and it sucks, but it's a part of the game. And Conor was trying to get revenge. He was angry going. They were both angry going into this. The way Dustin's ground and pound was, that was angry ground and pound. And the way Conor was throwing those they weren't calf kicks. They were kind of high, and that's why he got checked really bad. He was throwing those leg kicks angry. He was throwing them really hard to get back at the last fight. But when you do that, and he wasn't even really setting them up, they're going to get checked. And yeah, they were putting some stuff on Dustin, but that at the end of the day, you have to set those up. And that was just all about Conor trying to get it back, in my opinion. It was just a wild fight. I think Dustin definitely deserved to win it. Oh, here's my main point about this whole thing, and why something I think is being so overlooked. One, I think the fight could have been stopped in the first place. So I think Dustin would have won anyways. Two, everybody's talking about this. Dustin Poirier, in my opinion, and in everybody's opinion, he absolutely won the round definitively. He beat Conor McGregor up in Conor McGregor's round one. That's the biggest thing right there. Conor McGregor, when is he going to knock Dustin out? The first round. I'm not saying Conor would have been gassed completely, but he was trying a lot to get up, and he was eating some big shots. He was rocked, and the whole reason he engaged was because he was rocked on the feet, so he's not comfortable there. He's not comfortable on the ground, and he got absolutely owned in the only round where people think he can absolutely win it. That, for me, seals it. I don't think Hunter – for this next kind of thing, we'll go around. Let's talk about what happened after, and I also think we should talk about what kind of Hunter said with oh, I forgot it now. Dang it. But what oh, crap. I was just about to say it, but man, this is so stupid. I built this whole thing up.
Hunter, help us.
I can't. I don't know what he's talking about.
I got to put him on the spot.
It was one of the last things. Oh, I got it. All right. That they shouldn't make a fourth fight. Like, because obviously they both talked about it. I mean, Dustin Poirier's was more just because of what he said, and that ties into it. But Conor's was more like, it's an illegitimate win. I didn't actually lose, which I completely disagree with. There's so much more to break down. Hunter, what are you thinking?
A lot. I'm thinking about a lot. But
I mean, yeah.
I'm gonna start with my round scorecard. I would have gave it a 10-9 instead of a 10-8.
Okay.
And this is just I don't disagree with any of your guys' points. I think they're fantastic points. It's just when we've seen 10-8s in the past, I feel like they were more dominant by the other fighter. You know, I think Conor McGregor did enough damage to Dustin Poirier to negate a 10-8 because he did some damage from the bottom that Dustin really didn't like. You know, you saw him getting really uncomfortable in the octagon. You saw him Dustin kind of trying to dodge it, but he couldn't exactly dodge it until he went up and delivered another elbow. But he also did some great leg kicks, which kind of, like we talked about, led to his demise. And Conor landed some really good punches too. Like Dustin even talked about one of the crosses that Conor landed that got him like really buzzed and hurt. And I mean, he wasn't out on the feet or anything like that, but he was hurt. Like Dustin admitted it. So off of those like three things alone, that's the only reason I gave it a 10-9. I could totally understand about 10-8s. And let's be honest here, Dustin won that round. There's no which way about it. There's no way to get around it. What else should I talk about? I'm thinking definitely no fourth fight. Dustin proved that he's the better fighter. He was better in all aspects of each round, whether that be on the ground, whether that be up and standing. Conor engaged in the clinch first. He didn't feel comfortable standing up with Dustin. He didn't feel comfortable on the ground with Dustin. That's just a recipe for disaster. You know, the only way you're going to win that fight, if you don't feel comfortable anywhere on the feet or on the ground, is if Dustin somehow disqualifies himself or you land the luckiest KO of your life, which Conor McGregor, granted, lands a lot of KOs. But that doesn't mean he should get a fourth fight whatsoever. There shouldn't be a rematch. Dustin proved himself. He's won twice in a row now. Dustin is already the number one contender and declined the title shot. There's no way he's declining it again. There's just not going to be a fourth fight anytime soon. Maybe like years and years and years down the line when it was like Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz 3 or something like that, you know? But
Oscar De La Hoya and
Oscar De La Hoya. Yeah, exactly. But honestly, are we going to have another rotation, guys? Like
Sure. Yeah.
Then I'll talk about what I feel like Conor did in the post-fight interview and pre-fight, everything before and after that. So I'll stop it right there. I gave you my scorecard. Keelan, I am ready to hear the absolute punishment you're going to give to McGregor.
Well, yeah, I am going to.
I love the rotation game we got going to. There's going to be so many. I love it.
Yeah.
Before I get into that, there's definitely not a fourth fight for me.
No
Dustin, way. And I say it semi-humorously, but I also say it seriously. Dustin beat that ass. He beat it in Dustin McGregor 2. He beat it again. And realistically, he has nothing more to prove. Prime Conor McGregor might have been the more talented fighter, but prime Dustin Poirier has got so much more heart and grit. And I will take heart and grit over talent any day of the week. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And that summarizes Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. Now, on to what we shouldn't be talking about, but what has happened and what did happen. I'm in a very unique situation when it comes to this because I'm an Irish sports fan. I'm an Irish mixed martial arts fan, and I take great pride in that. But some of the things that have been said and some of the things that have been done, not just in this fight, but in the Khabib fight and even beyond that, are some of the most despicable, disgraceful, vile, common, and low acts of speaking and verbal assault I've ever seen from one human being towards another human being. And I'm almost getting angry talking about this because I do feel it personally. This is the fight game. We understand this isn't a fairy game. You know, we're grown men here. We know what we're about. We give insults. We give as good as we get. I have no issue with that. That's fair game. But when you talk about someone's family, you bring someone's wife into the conversation, you start issuing death threats against people, you wish hospitalization on them. I've never, ever wished injury on a professional fighter because it's a horrible game sometimes. They have families, they have careers, and I would never wish that on anybody. We've seen it with Anderson Silva. We've seen it with Chris Weidman. I don't need to give you all the examples because you all know them already. This is the closest I've ever come to saying that a fighter deserved everything he got. because quite frankly, and I'm not holding back here, when you wish someone to go out in a stretcher and you wish to send someone to a cemetery, you get everything you effing deserve. And Conor McGregor got his. He got his karma. He got everything that's been coming to him. And quite frankly, he does deserve it, if I'm being blunt. If you want to wish that ill will on someone who does such good, then that says everything about you and nothing about him. Quite frankly, Conor McGregor and the UFC created this monster, and now we're seeing this monster rear its ugly, money fueled, hate driven head. That's what this has become. You know, if Conor had broken his leg and he's lying on the floor of the octagon, and he says, "Fair play, Dustin. You were the better man. You're the better fighter. I hope we can do this again sometime. You know, try and rectify it." I have no issue with that. But to sit there and look like a vile, drunk old man and to continue to say the things that he said, especially about his wife and especially about his family, that's unforgivable for me personally. He crossed the line with the Khabib talk about his religion, about his father, about his family. He went even further than that with Dustin. And to me, that's unforgivable. You don't come back from that. I am beyond disgusted and appalled with Conor McGregor. I owe nothing to him anymore. He is nothing to me. He's a shadow of what he once was. All he is corrupted by money. He's arrogant. He's vile. He's common. And that's it. He may have his yacht and he's never going to have to worry about money again, but he is an awful, awful representation of mixed martial arts. He's a crap ambassador for our sport, and he's a crap ambassador for my country.
Yeah, I that's so perfectly well said. I mean, and obviously coming from you is why it's extra good to get that perspective from it. What I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with something Dustin said afterwards, which it adds on to your point. He said Karma's not a bitch, she's a mirror, and that is, I think, what we saw right there. And it's very, I don't wish that on anybody. And Dustin Poirier, I feel like we got to see both ends of the spectrum for what we want to see represented in our sport. We get to see Conor, who's absolutely still trashing his family, wishing, literally doing this to him after the fight's over, sitting on the ground there. And you get to see Dustin Poirier, and he's obviously not happy at all. But even though he's being upset at Conor and saying that's bad, he's never in return saying, "I want you dead," or anything like that. He's never wishing any ill will on him. Still shouting out his charity. I really do think we got to see both ends of the spectrum there. And you know, people were saying the celebration was distasteful whenever after and everything. And you know what? It probably was, but wouldn't you do the same thing if he was talking about your wife like that, if he was wishing you dead there and everything like that? Yeah, it's tough whenever you see this. And I hate it so much because how awesome was Conor? He was amazing whenever he was in his prime and everything. All his trash talk was so good because it was funny and it was all true. His last two times he's trash talked was Khabib and this, and whenever he does it now, it just turns dark. It's just dark. It's messed up. It's wrong. It's dark. All the stuff he was saying about his wife, even afterwards. And to Dustin Poirier's credit, I mean, even afterwards, he's saying it's not the stuff he's saying about my wife that upsets me because he trusts his wife. He knows his wife. He knows that stuff can't happen. It won't happen. But the wishing him dead, to go in there, to actually wish him to die in there, it can happen. Anything can happen in MMA. Anything can happen in any combat sport. That can happen. So to actually wish that to happen, whether it's an empty threat or not, even after that, it's a horrible, despicable thing to do. I agree with you, Keelan. And obviously, I can't even add on to it because of your perspective. But just me being it hurts so much because being such a fan of mixed martial arts in the UFC. Especially in the early days, to have a star like Conor from Ireland to do what he did, to accomplish what he did. He was my favorite fighter for the longest time. I love
He was everybody's.
I loved him so much. Just all the performances, just the memories I have. I literally, the Jose Aldo and the Eddie Alvarez fight and the Chad Mendez fight especially, I remember where I was. I remember what I was wearing. I remember what I was eating because that was just legendary. I loved him so much. To see what he's become is very disappointing because it takes away from everything that he's accomplished, from everything he's tried to do. It's just very and to do it against a guy like Dustin Poirier, who, if you're trying to hate Dustin Poirier, I think it's very hard to try and hate Dustin Poirier and everything that he's done and everything. To wish him to die, to say that his wife is a hoe, even as he's leaving the octagon, to say that thing like she's in my DMs, it's horrible, and it literally makes me hurt. And I don't want to see Conor fight again. I really don't. It's as much as what's everything that's happened and everything. It hurts to see how he's become. And I'm almost repeating myself here, but it's so painful being used to being such a big Conor fan, to see what he's become now. It sucks. It really sucks. And so I hope Destiny goes out there and Charles Oliveira, that fight's going to be an amazing fight. I love both those guys. They're going to put on a show. Look at any other lightweight fight in the division. Every one of those guys respects each other, puts on a war. I mean, look at the top guys. You have Justin Gaethje. You used to have Khabib. You have Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, Dan Hooker. All those guys, even if they have a little banter back and forth, it's all respect. It's all everything. And most trash talk in the UFC, what Conor used to be. Now, he would get into people's heads because it would be truth, what he was saying, but it was funny. It wasn't anything like what he did against Khabib. I still think Khabib was the furthest Conor's ever gone, because he started talking about his religion and his wife and everything like that. But wishing Dustin dead is just a whole nother category, and it's terrible. So, yeah, I hate it so much, and I wish Justin the best, obviously, and he definitely won this legitimately. To touch on the fourth fight, there should absolutely not be a fourth fight. Dustin won it fair and square. Leg break or not, he absolutely won that fight. He earned it. And he handled it even with class. Even everything that's happened, Conor doing all those things, he handled it with class. So yeah, that's kind of what I got to say about it. That sucks.
Yeah, there's no more I'm adding on to that. That it does suck entirely. There will be there's a little bit more I'm gonna throw out there just for perspective here. Conor McGregor sets an example for so many people.
Yes.
And when he does this type of situation, people are going to follow because they're going to think that's how pay-per-views are bought. And that's what's happening right now. You see what's Colby Covington's trash talk now? Like, it's terrible. I think he just made a call. He called out Dustin's wife and child now. He's bringing in children instead of just spouses. And, Dustin Poirier's wife is a badass. She really is. Jolie's awesome. Like, I remember seeing the charity in the octagon when she's flipping off Conor McGregor when he's on the ground. It's perfect. Like, he had that coming. It's amazing. Jolie's no slouch, The whole Poirier family, they're amazing. But you cannot wish anything bad on someone else's family, especially when you're in a fight. Like, you need to respect each other when you're in that octagon. When one person is brave enough to try to step in the octagon, that's when respect is paid in full. They know they're going in there. They're willing to get hurt. And if they go in there and do get hurt, then the other opponent wishes for a speedy recovery. That's how it works. Not like this, There's not much else I'm going to add to that because it's a damper, really. No one really likes to hear it. I don't want to keep adding on to the sad show here. I hope Dustin does fantastic against Charles Oliveira. It should happen here soon because I feel like Dustin didn't get too much damage put against him, and Charles Oliveira didn't suffer too much damage, and it's already been months since the fight since Michael Chandler. So hopefully we see that by the end of the year. This could be the year of Dustin Poirier. 2019, that was all Jorge Masvidal. 2020, it's kind of hard to say. Maybe Amanda Nunes, but maybe Anand Sayed too. 2021, this is Dustin Poirier's year. All right, you know what? We're not going to let Conor McGregor ruin it. Dustin Poirier came in here. He's paid in full. His resume speaks for himself. He's a fantastic fighter, and I only wish the best for him from here on out.
Yeah, whenever I think about this, and I don't want to take this up being sad too much longer because I think we've all covered it perfectly. It is so, I can't even find the words to describe what this feels like. It almost feels like a knife in the ribs being twisted again and again and again. And it feels like that because he represents me and he represents every fight fan like me. Every time he goes out to the octagon with that flag draped on his shoulders, every time he does it in our name, he makes it look like we're like that, and we're not. We're better than that. As Irish people, as combat sports fans, as human beings, we're all better than that. And he sets an example Hunter said it better than I ever could. He sets an example to literally probably 30% of the globe's population, probably even more. What are they going to think when they see this? I mean, I expect nothing better from that asshole Colby Covington. I knew he'd jump on this. That's just his standard. But people are going to think this is the way to go now. This is the way to sell. This is the way to make money. And if there's not a better way to do that, then there's no hope for any of us as mixed martial arts fans. We may as well just pack it in and go home now, go back to the corruption of boxing, because there's nothing left if that is the case. You know, Conor McGregor was the man who carried the pride of a nation. He was the man who kicked the door open, opened the door for so many, not even just Irish, but European fighters. The guy who reached the mountaintop and then reached the mountain on top of that mountain. And then money destroyed his soul. Money took him, money corrupted him, and now money's destroyed him. All he is a venomous, common thug, frankly. And honestly, I'm not upset if I never see him in the octagon again, because he's not worthy of being called a mixed martial artist. Jack said this at the very beginning of the segment, and I couldn't have said it any better. What we saw on one end of the spectrum was a gentleman, a martial artist with respect and with decency and with honor. The other one we saw was a drunk thug, nothing more, nothing less. Any man who threatens a wife, who threatens a family, is not worthy of being called a man. He sure as hell is not worthy of being called a champion or a martial artist or even a sportsman. And quite frankly, that's all I'm going to say about Conor McGregor, because I'm going to end up saying something I regret if I go any further. I do apologize. But taking this a little bit more positively, I could not be any happier for Dustin Poirier. He deserves everything that's coming his way. Finally gave that idiot a taste of his own medicine and then some, which he's had coming for 5 years. This is Dustin Poirier's year. I really hope it is. And I absolutely love Charles Oliveira. Him and Dustin Poirier are both the epitome of a mixed martial artist. Been through the fire, came back when everyone thought it was done for them, and reached the mountaintop. That's what we're meant to believe in. And they both epitomize that and personify that to the fullest degree. And that's going to be an unbelievable fight. As far as I'm concerned, I said this a while ago, and it was a little bit controversial, but I'm going to stick with it. If Dustin Poirier wins the full strap against Charles Oliveira, I'm making the argument that he's the greatest lightweight that's ever fought in the UFC.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, it's up there. It's absolutely up there. I can't even touch on much of what you said, especially about the representation part, because of him being through the country and from your country. And that's very emotional to hear. It's just but you know, your country and everything. He also represents all of MMA. He not only all of MMA, all of combat sports, because he's the biggest combat sports athlete right now, and possibly not legacy wise, but biggest name. He's up there forever with how big he is and everything. He represents all of that, and he makes everybody that likes to watch MMA and anybody that follows it, anyone that wants to pursue it, to be related to that personality as well. So that's definitely up there. And I won't even touch on it because of what you said. It's 100% facts and it's 100% true. The last thing, what are you going to say?
No, sorry, I'll just add, I promise you this is one more quick thing, and then we will move on to more positivity. Yeah. For years as mixed martial arts fans, we've moved from the label of human cockfighting, and we finally got to the point of making our beautiful sport a legitimate, respected sport. And now this is all coming back again. There has to be a line that's drawn. You know, I don't care if it's full of casuals. I don't care who it is. This needs to end here. Sorry, Jack.
No, hey, you're right. You're absolutely right. The last thing I want to say, and this is a positive thing, because it's kind of not, but what you're seeing with Conor is extra disappointing, and the reason you're seeing is because he's going so deep and personal and awful with the trash talk. You've seen with two opponents now, Dustin Poirier and Khabib, and even Dustin Poirier was willing to be friendly at the end of it, but Conor wasn't. Khabib obviously wasn't, but I mean, you can't blame him. Almost every single rivalry that we've seen, bad blood to the core. They absolutely hate each other. Even at the end of it, you guys touched on this earlier, They go to war for 5 rounds. They go to war. They're willing to go in there, to step in there, literally put their lives on the line, literally go in there, and they have to, at the end of it, no matter what is said before, whatever, even though, and it wouldn't go as far, they respect their opponent afterwards. They shake their hand, win or loss, and they're like, okay, you were the better man tonight. Or, you know what? We went there and fought a war. We went out there and put everything out there for the fans, for entertainment, for everything, and just, it's martial arts. That's what it is at the core. It's art. You love it. It's two guys going together, two women going together, just putting it all on the line, seeing what's going to happen. And that's why we love our sport. One of my favorite parts of it is after seeing just an absolute 5-round war with even a little animosity between, at the end of it, seeing them embracing and just like raising up each other's hands, just being like, hey, that was freaking awesome. You have to respect that. And that's the beauty of our sport. And that's what I hope we continue to see, and not what we saw last night or Saturday night. That's what I hope it on. And that's what I want everybody to see in MMA, is that moment right there, and the victory and everything, and just everybody respecting each other, and not what Conor has done in this situation. But yeah, moving on to more interesting, less sad things. Sean O'Malley, and this is a weird one to end it off on, but it is probably one of the most fascinating things off of the fight night, because Chris Moutinho, you have to respect the man. He went in there.
Oh, hell yeah.
And yes,
New
he was
zombie.
Yes, he was a human punching bag, but he was in there for the entire fight. And I am a little disappointed it was stopped. You can justify it, but I am a little disappointed it was stopped, because I think if anyone earned that thing to go to the distance, it was Chris Moutinho. But hey, Sean O'Malley got the victory, looked amazing. His striking percentage was great. Mm-hmm. And he had a very interesting call out. We talked about potentially him calling out Cody Garbrandt, and he did call out Cody Garbrandt along with another list of names. Hunter, you were right. I'm so glad I chose your side on that one, because we were right. Sorry, Caitlin.
I can take an
sorry to add insult to everything.
I'm not like Conor. I can take a loss.
So, Hunter, what did you make of the whole Sean O'Malley performance and call out?
The performance was awesome. You know, there were 10 shots that O'Malley threw that could have ended anyone in the bantamweight division, but Chris Moutinho has gained another fan out of me and out of anyone who watched the UFC pay-per-view on Saturday night. You know, no one expected Chris to make it that long, let alone not get knocked out, because Sean O'Malley knocks everyone out. And to see a UFC rookie step in the octagon against one of the most talented strikers we've seen in the bantamweight division and hold his own, and not even like, I mean, he was phased in the first round. He got knocked down in the first round. Don't get me wrong. But in the second and third round, it was looking like it was Raging Bull out there. You know?
Yeah.
He didn't hear no bell. He didn't hear bell. You know, Herb stopped it. And I get the stoppage. I don't think I agree with it, but, you know, it happens in MMA, right? It's not the worst stoppages we've seen. You know, like it's reasoned. And like Sean O'Malley said, I'm sure it saved a few years off his life. You know, it's for glory. I get it, but it happens in MMA. But the call out, you know, I'm not write a lot on the UFC MMA Island podcast.
No, you're good. You're
but
good.
This time, more often than not, I'm not. But this time, I got it. You know, I was thinking to myself on the live, I'm like, you know what, Cody Garbrandt. Yeah,
you know? I jumped on that train. I was with
Jack's
the Jack was
right behind
I was
me.
there.
I got to give.
I was behind you, man. Yeah, we're good.
But he did call out Cody Garbrandt. Do I think Cody Garbrandt's going to take the fight? Hell no. There's no reason he should. He's not even ranked at this point. The only reason to take the fight is to shut him up and to add some brownie points to his already spectacular career. But Dominic Cruz, he called out Dominic Cruz. He called out. I think he called out Rob Font on the last name. He kind of said it weirdly.
Fob Ront or something.
Fob Ront. Dude, I watched the video over the post-fight interview like 5 or 6 times, and I was watching the video while looking at the bantamweight rankings list. I'm like, who the hell is he talking about? And finally, I'm like, dude, it has to be Rob Font. But he called out the champ for some reason, petrified Peter Yan. Dominic Cruz has already said that he's not taking the fight. He's interested in Rob Font. I think Rob Font would probably be interested in Dominic Cruz more than he would be interested in Sean O'Malley. And I don't see Cody Garbrandt fighting Sean O'Malley either. So what do I think about the call out? I was happy to hear that I was right. No way in hell he gets any of those opponents. I think he does get someone in the top 15 for surely. I think he's ready to move on. We've talked about it for a month now. He is most definitely ready to move on to the top 15. I think he knows he's ready to move on to the top 15. So at least he's in that mindset now. I'm not going to talk more shit about Sean O'Malley because we talked 2 weeks worth.
A whole podcast worth.
A whole podcast plus an Instagram live, plus half a podcast. So
Deserved.
what can I say? Deserved for surely. Don't get me wrong, but he's not doing it now. He's calling out the 15 opponents, which we asked for. So kudos to him for that. Who do I think he's going to get next? That's a topic for another podcast. But I thought the call out was a lot of fun just to hear. I love to hear the big names, and everyone loves to hear the big names. So Sean O'Malley, he brought his fan number up again, but more fan numbers for Chris, I'd say as well.
Yeah, this was a brilliant fight, and it was a brilliant way to open a great card.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna hold my hands up here because if I pan someone, I will admit that I've panned them, and I've probably been the worst scorcher of Sean O'Malley out of the three of us over the past month. I can admit to that.
Hey, you said number 5 on the banter.
You went full spectrum. I mean, you were like all
you
the way
had
at the
your
back. You're like
chances,
number
right?
5,
Like,
and then
Yeah. I mean, I love him, man. I hate him. It is what it is. He's a divisive fighter.
That's the UFC.
yeah, exactly.
Welcome to the UFC, everybody.
Welcome to the UFC.
No, on a personal level, I'm not going to go back to everything we've just talked about. My personal respect for Sean O'Malley went up a hell of a lot when he gave the kudos to Chris Moutinho that he did. Saying he was a tough mother effer, which he is.
Yeah.
Shout out Raging Bull, love that shout. Shout out Jake LaMotta. Kudos to Chris Moutinho. What a young, tough son of a gun he is. Realistically, round 1 was a 10-7, just vicious beating from Sean O'Malley, and he kept coming. There's a lot of ranked guys who would have retired on the stool and we would not have been mad at it, but this kid kept going. And all right, he was never going to knock Sean O'Malley out, and realistically, O'Malley was never in trouble, but he landed shots. He did land 1 or 2 half-decent shots that made Sean take a step back, and that's all I needed to see from Chris Moutinho. This kid has earned his spot in the bantamweight division, and when I start seeing him train full-time, I'm really excited to see the fighter he becomes, because he has got a beating diamond in him. He is tough, he is gritty, and he's talented beyond no illusion. But for Sean O'Malley, it was a masterclass. It was always going to be, but even then, I was still unbelievably impressed. The talent this guy possesses at his fingertips and his feet is unparalleled. I really do believe that. I think he's incredible. And it is a ranked opponent that's next for him. If I had to bet, I think it's the Cheeto Vera rematch. I think they'll try and make that happen. Because I think Cheeto's still ranked, isn't he? I think he's number 13.
I don't know.
Cheeto is not ranked. Wait,
I didn't think so.
He's
I
not ranked
think
right now.
Is he not ranked?
I'm looking at it. I don't
I
see
could have
any.
sworn he was ranked.
Well, who did he just fight?
I mean, there's Marlon Vera, but
That English guy he fought.
Yeah, and they're both not ranked. And Cheeto wasn't ranked the first time they fought either, I don't think.
God, I thought Cheeto Vera was ranked.
It seems
Anyway,
like it, right?
yeah, it's gonna be a
let me
ranked
determine
opponent
it.
though. Yeah,
no, he's ranked. Yeah, you're right. He is 13. You called it on the.
Oh,
dot.
no way, really?
Yep.
Oh, he was.
Marlon
Oh, right,
Vera.
yeah.
That's
I
possible.
always forget Marlon is actually Cheeto's real name, but yeah.
Oh, right, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I must admit, I
Well,
forgot that too.
isn't Marlon Vera another up there too? I don't know. Whatever.
I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Who am I
Cheeto Vera's
thinking
twin.
of? Who am I thinking of?
I mean, there's Marlon Moraes.
Marlon Moraes. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Marlon
also
Moraes. There's two
Brandon
Marlons.
Vera who competes in one championship.
That
That's true.
also exactly. Yeah. There's too many
Yeah.
Marlons. Yeah.
There's too many Marlins and too many Veras, all right? Come on,
And
people.
That's why
around the
he's
same
Cheeto now.
Around the same. Yeah. Exactly.
Can someone change the surname to Ramon or something? Yeah, Sean O'Malley, incredibly impressive. It's definitely bigger and better things for him. Shout out my boy Hunter for the shouts, because he called this shot for shot, and I
Go
want him
Hunter.
to have his credit because he called that amazingly. Do I think he'll get the fights? I agree with Hunter. I don't think he will. Cody Garbrandt's going down to 125, so that's definitely not happening. Cruz wants Font. Why not just make it a triple threat match? Rob Font, Dominic Cruz, Sean O'Malley. I mean, they all want each other.
Put a
Just make it
ladder in
happen.
there. And the belt at the top.
Yeah.
Money in the bank with a joint at the top as well.
Yep.
If I, put Sean O'Malley's chain as the money in the bank thing. No, I'm really excited to see what's next for Sean O'Malley. I have no idea who it's going to be, but it's going to be really exciting. And yeah, it was a killer fight. Massive respect to him, and biggest respect to Chris Moutinho as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't disagree with anything you said there. I'm sorry if I made some weird faces, but I was trying not to laugh whenever I heard Fob Ront. Like, I just, that keeps going back in my mind.
I was dead.
I'm like trying to hold it back. But yeah, Sean O'Malley, first and foremost, let me mention Sean O'Malley before I get to Chris Moutinho. Because Sean O'Malley landed at like 80% striking rate over basically 3 rounds, which is unheard of in MMA. And he broke the bantamweight strikes landed, I think, record. And it's no surprise why. So Sean O'Malley, it was a great victory. It was what he wanted to do, but oh my gosh, Chris Moutinho. Oh, it was amazing. What a performance. He went out there and just realized the opportunity that he was given. First fight in the UFC, 11 days notice or something like that, on the Conor McGregor card, biggest card of the year, second biggest pay-per-view of all time. And he took it. He went out there and fought beautifully. And you know what? He didn't hurt Sean O'Malley, but you know what he did? He gassed Sean O'Malley out because Sean O'Malley was running backwards the entire time landing. And that takes a toll. Sean O'Malley in the third round was taking deep breaths because he was running the entire fight because Chris Moutinho was going forward. And after being rocked at the end of the first round, being really rocked, I thought he was going to get finished quick in the second, but no, he kept coming forward. He was nonstop running forward, and he absolutely, no doubt about it, deserves a shot in the UFC again, deserves at least one fight in the UFC again because of the absolute dog that he has in him and the performance that he put out there. He put on a show, and it was the perfect way to start the fight, the fight card. Herb Dean, I understand it. It's hard to disagree with the decision to stop the fight with the punishment that he was given, but you could have stopped the fight in the second round. Realistically, even not going into the stool at the end of the first round with 30 seconds left, please let the man finish. He's earned it. I think he's earned it with blood, sweat, and tears going out there. Yes, he was eating shots and everything, but I would have loved for him to finish it. Either way, it doesn't take away from what Chris Moutinho did. He really put it out there, and he did a phenomenal job doing it. And Sean O'Malley, even better performance. I mean, you fought a guy that would not be finished, and you did everything that you could do. And you know, he did get the finish. He landed clean shots. He was an absolute sniper, 80% about striking percentage. 72. But okay. He was 80%
in the
for a
first
while.
round,
yeah,
granted.
Yeah. But 72 is still ridiculous. I mean, most guys don't even 50% is good if you're landing strikes.
That's only just behind Holloway against Calvin Kattar, just to perspectivize that.
Exactly. And that was a 3-round fight. Exactly. So, well, I mean, that just amplifies what Max Holloway did, but still, Sean O'Malley really proved himself, even though it was against what we saw as a lesser opponent. Chris Moutinho went out there and put on a performance. So credit to both men. Sean O'Malley, I love the call outs. Like what Hunter said exactly. I loved it. I'm so glad I hopped on that train, by the way. We keep saying this. Congratulations, Hunter. Way to go, man. That's the best prediction you've had so far, I think. He's the real MVP, exactly. And so I'm glad I got on that. But, you know, I don't know. You know what? I think, you know what? I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go further because I'm going to disagree with you both there just because why not? Maybe the Cody Garbrandt fight will happen. Maybe Cody will say that. He wants to shut him up because he's been talking about him. Dominic Cruz is too busy with Fob Ront.
Fob Ront. I thought he was doing it on purpose. Man. This dude really just said Fob Ront.
Got him.
It's a 10-8.
Got him.
That's a 10-8.
I got to stop now, right? This is it. This is the end of me.
That was a
if I hadn't hopped on Hunter's train before this, I would have nowhere to stand and I would have to leave the podcast. But I broke even now. No. I'm even now. All right. I'm good. I broke even. Now, all right. I'm back to where I was before. I've killed Keel. This podcast has gone up and down, emotional roller.
I know it's a roller coaster right here.
I swear. Rob Font. I was about to say it again. I swear. Rob Font is too busy with Dominic Cruz. I think that fight will happen. If you guys can take anything I say seriously now. But yeah, I don't know. I think Sean O'Malley, let's see what happens. Chito Vera is very possible, but I want to see him fight someone that I think he is capable of fighting. And what he did, I think he's capable of fighting the best. Stop it, man. I swear. But yeah, It's very good for Sean O'Malley, and I think we all agree it was a great performance. And I'm excited to see what happens. The call-outs were necessary. He finally did it. Maybe we can stop crapping on Sean O'Malley because we all love Sean O'Malley. What he did out there, the walkout and everything was so hype. The fight itself was amazing. He's ready to deliver performances, and I can't wait to see him against the best of the bantamweight division.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, we've heard that Sean O'Malley's been really working on his Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and he said he's getting really, really good at it now. But it's funny because we haven't even been able to see him use it in the octagon yet because he's been so great on the feet. He starches people. He makes people doubt themselves, which I love about Sean O'Malley. Khabib talks about drowning them in the deep waters through his wrestling. I feel like that's what Sean O'Malley does on the feet.
Yeah,
I think Sean O'Malley's a high caliber opponent. I can't say any more great things about him. Personally, if I were to give a call out right now for the bantamweight division, I would say we need somewhat of a big name, someone who's been in the octagon for a while. I think Rafael Assunção is not a bad call. I would not hate Rafael Assunção.
I love that.
Rafael Assunção loves to trade on the feet. He can wrestle a little bit. I think Sean O'Malley's better than him. Don't get me wrong. But I think it's going to be a real test to see what he's made of in the top 15.
I love that.
I really like that. That's Hunter, you're 5 for 5 today. That was really,
this
really
is
good.
Arguably your best podcast of all time.
Maybe keep going. Maybe keep going a little bit.
All right, just stroke his ego a little more.
Yeah, I know.
No, that's a great shout. What was it? Yeah, my last point that I meant to bring up was the doctor stoppage. I think it was a really good stoppage. I really do. In the heat of the moment, I was firmly on Jack's side on this. Yeah. I think at that point I did agree with letting him finish the fight. The problem is, O'Malley landed 230 significant strikes in 14 minutes. I mean, if you average that per 30 seconds, that could be 30 significant strikes he saved Chris Moutinho from suffering. Not to piggyback off Jorge Masvidal, but it was a super necessary stoppage. I do agree with that. Whenever you have a guy who's doing the Rocky Balboa tactic, who's just walking forward to eat strikes, this isn't boxing. Boxing's a dangerous sport in its own right, but it's not as bad as taking strikes in MMA. And let's be honest here as well. Let's say that fight continues for the extra 30 seconds. There's no guarantee that's just punches either. That could have been elbows, high kicks, knees, permanent damage to Chris Moutinho. I think the reason why we have such good referees is that referees have to be mature and they have to be able to see the fight from the actual proper perspective. They have to be able to remove the fan element within themselves. And I think Herb Dean showcased why he's the best referee in the world, because he had the guts to do the right thing for Chris Moutinho and make that decision.
I respect that a lot. I absolutely do respect that, but I stick with where I'm at. Now,
I see what you mean. I do.
Yeah. And we're okay. We all know what we're talking about. So this is one of those things where you disagree with, and you don't call each other a casual, because this is both this is an issue you could really go back and forth on. Where I stand on it is, if Herb Dean was going to do it, I think he should have done it earlier with what's going on. Because he might have saved him from 30 strikes, but there were so many moments in the fight where Chris Moutinho was just getting absolutely destroyed. I would have liked to see him do it earlier. And that's where I would have been. But in the last 30 seconds of the fight, it's so close to him finishing. He was eating, and it is absolutely the smart thing to do. It is absolutely the smart thing to do. I think Herb Dean should have stopped it earlier, honestly. And that's where I would have stood on it. But where you're coming from, it's not a wrong thing. You can't say that's wrong, because it was a necessary stoppage. It absolutely was. But just thinking from Chris Moutinho's point of view, you're 30 seconds away from going the distance with Sean O'Malley in your UFC debut in front of everybody, and you put on a show. You got the entire crowd ramped up for the rest of the night, and really arguably helped impact the rest of the fights that went on, because they had to live up to it. Just for me, if I was in his position there, but I think, you know what, Keelan, I agree with you. Herb Dean did what he had to do, and he saved the fighter. It's tough to see what's going on from his point of view and from everything that he put into it. But what you said is not wrong. Herb Dean he did make the right decision. Just from me, if he was going to make that decision, I was calling for the fight to be stopped earlier than that, because of the amount of damage he was taking. I mean, what he was averaging, every 30 seconds, that's at least 1 or 2 punches per second that Sean O'Malley was landing on average. So, yeah, it's just so tough to hear. But what you said, it's true too. I really think you could go both ways on this.
Yeah, and again, you are absolutely correct. Nobody, I don't think any of us three disagree that Chris Moutinho deserved to see the end of that fight.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely not saying that. I just want to categorically clarify that. The thing is sometimes, and this is why being referee is such a goddamn hard and thankless job, because in that moment, you don't have hindsight. You have to make that decision for the fighter as well as
Yeah.
yourself. And yeah, I really, really wanted Chris Moutinho to see the end of the fight. I really did, because a loss looks so bad compared to a decision. I'm more than fully on your side in that. It's just sometimes, you have to determine when a fighter needs to be saved from themselves. And I think what turned it for Herb Dean, again, I've never refereed a mixed martial arts fight. In many ways, I'm thankful I haven't. But if you replay the fight, especially the last 60 seconds, I think O'Malley lands an uppercut that really cracks
those were clean.
Moutinho.
Yeah.
And I think that's where his hands drop slightly. And I think that's when the pressure begins to be poured on. And if Herb Dean justifies that by saying that Moutinho couldn't, intelligently defend himself anymore, I think it's a very fair argument. But again, this is like any question of morality in life. There is no right or wrong answer here. You can debate this in the gray zone until the end of time, and you still wouldn't be right, and you still wouldn't be wrong.
Yeah, hey, you can't disagree with that. Those shots were absolutely clean, and so that's why it is an acceptable time for him to step in, because they were absolutely clean. And you know what? At the end of the day, he got what he went in there to try and do. DC shouted him out afterwards. Dana White met up with him, and he has to get another shot. He has to get another fight in the UFC because of what he did.
He made so
if he
many
doesn't,
chances.
that's a crime. That's absolutely a crime if he does not. So, all respect to Sean O'Malley. What a great night of fights, up and down. This podcast was so up and down, an emotional roller coaster. It was incredible. One of the best we've done for sure. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening to this. Please make sure to like and subscribe, as always, on YouTube. Check us out. We're everywhere, literally everywhere, including iTunes and Spotify. Everywhere. And go ahead and follow us on Instagram at MMA.island. You can go ahead and check out our Instagram Live if you missed it. It's posted there. We had 2 parts because the time ran out. Wasn't expecting that, but we rolled with it. It was good. Please make sure to check out our stuff on our website, MMAisland.net. Again, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Fantastic podcast, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Definitely one of my favorites we've ever done. Thank you so much, everybody.